North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles off its east coast earlier today, the second such launch in a week. And the South Korean military has shared more of its findings about today's launch. For more, we connect to our Kim Ji-yeon at Seoul's Defense Ministry. Ji-yeon, the latest launch seems to have a lot in common with last week's.
That's right, Devin. Just like last Thursday, the missiles fired this morning were both short range and ballistic and were fired from near North Korea's eastern city of Wonsan in the early hours in a northeasterly direction towards the East Sea. An official from South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said Wednesday the missiles, like last time, are presumed to have been launched using a transporter erector launcher, which is used to move missiles to a desired launch location. That means the missiles are not bound to a fixed launch site, and the North's movements are therefore harder to predict. The military is still verifying where the missiles landed and said it regards today's and last week's launch to be in the test firing phase and not fully operational. What's starkly different this time, though, is the flight distance and altitude. Today's launches flew a much shorter distance than last week's, flying some 250 kilometers and reaching an altitude of around 30 kilometers, which is lower than the 50 kilometers recorded last week. This may signify that the North is trying to find ways to evade the existing Patriot missile system, which normally intercept targets at altitudes of around 40 kilometers. The military said it's monitoring North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's movements, but didn't state where he was at the time of launch, today morning's launch, unlike last week when the military said he could have been at the Wonsan area. It says it's currently working with the U.S. to analyze the missiles further, including their trajectory, and so the military bears in mind that today's launches could be similar to last week's. It's monitoring the situation while maintaining a defense posture in case of additional launches. To fill you in about last Thursday's firings, the military confirmed last week that the 2 missiles both flew some 600 kilometers and were both similar to Russia's Iskander-class ballistic missile system, which is known to be able to move away from its original trajectory to change its target or avoid being shot down. But the military also said it's capable of intercepting them with the existing Patriot anti-missile system. Devin?
Well, we can expect more to come out about today's launch, but you mentioned the Iskander-class ballistic missile system from Russia and that it's similar to the ones launched today. Tell us more about that and why people here in South Korea are concerned about it.
Well, sure. A ballistic missile which flies in an arc is considered to be more lethal to, say, a cruise missile, which is a guided missile that remains in the atmosphere and travels the majority of its flight path at a relatively constant speed. And anti-missile systems like the Patriot or the Terminal High Altitude Defense System THAAD were designed to shoot down the missiles by analyzing their flight trajectory. And normally, ballistic missiles have a more complicated flying trajectory, making it harder to collect and predict data to shoot them down. Upon their descent, they drop steeply and finally hit their target vertically, sometimes by changing their angle. Also, what was noticeable about last week's launch is how the military have pointed out the so-called pull-up maneuver in the missile's final dive phase as the main reason it took a day to finalize the missile's flight distance. It had initially presumed last Thursday's missiles have flown some 430 and 690 kilometers last Thursday, but then corrected them to have flown 600 kilometers the following day. Back to you, Devin.
All right, thank you for that. Kim Ji-yeon from the Defense Ministry here in Seoul.